I want to welcome you all to the webinar on local partnerships for restaurants. My name is Lisa Chase. I'm with University of Vermont Extension and the Vermont Tourism Research Center. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. I should mention that funding for this webinar was provided by the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets and the Working Land Enterprise Board through a grant awarded to the Vermont Fresh Network. This is the first in a series of 3 webinars coming up during the next few weeks. And we're going to tell you more about the rest of the webinars later on. But first, we're going to dive into our topic today, local partnerships for restaurants. Our moderator today is Jessie Hoying. Jessie is the Membership and Events Manager at Vermont Fresh Network, where she works directly with farmers, agricultural producers, and chefs to help them get farm fresh food onto restaurant tables all across the state. She brings nearly a decade of digital marketing and communication experience to Vermont Fresh Network, and she's also worked as a farmhand on an organic vegetable farm. She lives in St. Johnsbury and continues to be active in the local agricultural community. Jessie, I'll hand it over to you now.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. And as Lisa said, my name is Jessie, and I'm the Membership and Events Manager here at Vermont Fresh Network. And today we're really excited to be speaking with 2 Vermont Fresh Network members. We're talking with Sean Blomgren, who is the Executive Chef of the Lodge at Spruce Peak in Stowe, and to Hervé Mahé, who is the Chef and owner of Bistro de Margot in Burlington. Both of them and their restaurants have received Vermont Fresh Network's Gold Barn designation, which means that they spend at least 35% of their annual food purchasing budget with local farm and producer partners. And so today we invited them to join us to share some of those experiences and what local partnerships look like for their restaurants. So we'll be discussing the impact local purchasing has on their culinary programs, as well as their recommendations for both chefs and local producers when it comes to building and maintaining those important relationships. So Sean and Hervé, would love for you to both kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background, your culinary experience, and how you kind of ended up where you are today with your current restaurants and programs. So Hervé, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you?
All right, so my name is Hervé Mahé. I'm the chef owner of Bistro Margot in Burlington. So I'm French, as you can probably hear it. I do have my background is in French cuisine. So I was born in France way back when in Lorraine. Then by the time I was 10, I ended up in Burgundy. We moved a bunch of time. And then by the time I was 15, first culinary program for 3 years. Worked in that during that time, did a couple internship, one in Deauville in Normandy in a palace as a server, and the second one in a kitchen in Paris. Then I graduated in 87. Then I went to work for a year, went to La Tour d'Argent in Paris, then went to Corsica and came back to Vichy in south of France, and then went to another program, and I studied in 89, sorry, in Paris. So it was l'École supérieure de cuisine française, where I had the chance and the opportunity to learn under some amazing chefs. They had some people coming and do demo to us, and we would spend a day with 3-star Michelin chefs, and with whom afterwards some of us decided to go to do some of our internship there. We had 2 6-month internship in this 2-year program. And so that's where I went to l'Auberge de Lille in Alsace for the second one, the 3-star Michelin with at the time Paul Berlin. And his son was already in the kitchen, Marc. And then I did my second one in a 1-star Michelin in London at the Intercontinental Hotel. And at the time, the restaurant was called Le Soufflet. Not sure if it's still open now. So then after that, I had to do the military service in France. The 1 year, I was the last class, I think, to do it. So, but I did it in a kitchen in Paris, so it was pretty cozy and low-key. And then I went to work in Lyon. Worked with first of all in Paris with 2 of my friends who graduated from the l'École supérieure de cuisine française. One was Jean-François Marie, who now wrote probably 40 cooking books. including some that I called Simplissime. The other one is Mathieu Vianney, who now owns La Mer Brasier in Lyon, 2-star Michelin. And so we had in Paris, we had a brasserie, so about 250 seats. We opened an oyster bar, 120 seats. And we had a bunch of outlets in which we were doing sandwiches, bread, baguette type things, French sandwich, pastries, and all kinds. So we had these outlets also had fast food and pizza place and all. So it was a very kind of all around type training thing. For us, I mean, it was not a training. It was pretty busy. But I was in charge for me of the 2 production kitchen. One was doing the pastry, and the other one was doing sandwich. So to give you an idea, we're producing about 1.6 million sandwich a year. So I had a team of 8. It'd be open 7 days a week. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. That's when we started to really polish at the end with knowledge in terms of control, in terms of all the purchasing and all. Then I went to Lyon with Mathieu Vianney. So Mathieu Vianney, we at the time, Mathieu Vianney and I left Paris. I went to Lyon. It was the executive chef. I was executive sous chef at the time. And we had 2 also train stations were taking care of the concession for this one, for the different company. And then in 95, I moved to the US, got married with a US citizen. And then we went to Austin, Texas. Went to, afterwards, Vancouver, BC, Seattle, Washington. And then we came to Vermont in 2005 when my wife got a position at UVM. So, all that together, I worked in about 28 different restaurants, including mine. So that's kind of my background in terms of where I worked. Now my restaurant is a French restaurant. We had pre-pandemic 80 seats. Now we keep it at 45 seats, roughly keeping the 50% limit that we had during the pandemic. It works. And then so I got a good team. I got now a French chef de cuisine who just joined us in August. We've been talking for 3 years. He was in France, in Lyon. I met him in 2021 in December, and then he finally arrived. So it's a good thing. It's going to be a lot of help for me. I'm spending a lot of my time on the line, no matter what, and probably 60-70% on the line, and then the rest of it, it's paperwork, it's greeting customers, it's going and talk to every table. So that's what I do, and then that's pretty much where we are now. So the restaurant has been now open for 8 years. It was 8 years in September, and it's going well. I cannot complain. The pandemic was a little bit a little bit of a question mark at the beginning, mostly until the PPP and the different program from the government kicked in, and afterwards we were fine. We reopened. We had to do what we did what we had to do. During the time we were closed for 3 months, we had a program of takeout, but everything was cold. We had about 5 different stews. All our desserts, all our appetizer at the time could go in boxes, and then the stews were going at people's house, but cold, with instruction on how to reheat everything. So you had the veg, the starch, you had the stew, and we had 5, as I said. And then people could reheat everything. We had quiches, we had croque monsieur, croque madame. Anything we could do, we did. And then we reopened at 25%. And that summer was actually pretty good, even with a patio. The patio was full almost every day in the summertime. And then afterwards, winter came back. The fall with 25 and 50% indoor went really well. And 2021 ended up being our best year. So, the pandemic was something we learned a lot. Now we have reduced opening hours. We have, I got a little bit less staff in the front of the house, but, we still can do up to 60, 70, 80 on weekend, and that's good. And so this October was a great month for us. And then, again, we still, and then with that, we also use a lot of the local farmers, but we kind of go back to that afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Hervé. I was
You're welcome.
great to learn a little bit more about your background and everything. And yeah, we look forward to getting more into like the menus and your local partnerships and stuff here in a few minutes. But first, I want to hear from Sean as well. If you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you've ended up at Spruce Peak and like what your restaurants and everything looks like there.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. So I'm originally from the Boston area, I started at Le Cordon Bleu in Cambridge, and then moved on to opening the 5-star 5-diamond Mandarin Oriental in Boston. From there, I got the opportunity to move out to Aspen, Colorado, and opened up Chef's Club by Food and Wine at the St. Regis with Didier Elena, and we worked with chefs from around the country and around the world, doing curated menus at this one restaurant. After that, moved to Charleston, South Carolina, where I worked at the Kiawah Island Club, and also helped my wife open Tavern and Table in Charleston itself. Then we went to Washington, D.C., back to the Mandarin Oriental Hotel Group, Chef de Cuisine, and then took one more opportunity to go out to Telluride, Colorado, to work at the Madeline Hotel in Telluride. And then about 2017 or so, we got the urge to come back to the East Coast and ended up taking a position here at the formerly known lodge, Stone Mountain Lodge. So for the last 6 years, we've been here building, growing the business, rebranding. We're now a Hyatt destination managed property. And we've gone from doing about $7 million in F&B to a little over $16 million this year in the last 6 years. So right now we operate anywhere from 8 to 12 F&B outlets at any given time, depending on the season. We have 2 golf courses, a private members club, 2 main outlets. We do a partnership outlet with Whistlepick Whiskey, and pretty much constantly building and growing up here at the base of Stone Mountain.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And one of the reasons we're really excited to talk to both of you in this context is your businesses, your restaurants, the culinary programs that you work in are both so different. So Hervé, you have your own restaurant that, like you said, you seat about 45 people at a time. And then Sean, you have this much broader, almost institution level with several different restaurants and programs going on. And so it'll be really interesting, I think, to hear from both of your perspectives how you make those local partnerships work in your respective restaurants. So let's talk a little bit. Let's start by diving into working with local partners. So first, can you maybe just kind of introduce, like, who are some of the local partners that you currently work with, and how you've established some of those relationships?
So first we have a few main farms that we work with. I think this year was a little bit different because of the flood, but last year we had Rip and Sow Farm, and they were actually pretty. We did a lot of business with them. They had a lot of different vegetables, and the year prior to but they changed land in between. I think the land they ended up on was not so good, so he could not get everything we really wanted, but it worked still some pretty good time. And then we also started to work last year with Southern Stone Farm, and then with Southern Stone Farm was, I met them first of all online. They were following us on Instagram, check what they were doing, contacted them on Instagram, and then we started a partnership, and did last year until this year more so. And this year it was a little bit different, but we'll go into the detail afterwards. And then the one we met this year at the Vermont Fresh Network Forum in Burlington was Grateful Green. So we started to work with them, and so that's just kind of the main partner we have. Then we used to have cheese on the menu. We don't have cheese anymore, so we kind of got away from that a little bit. And then I met another farmer towards the end of the season, so we'll try to also go with this guy maybe next year. So so we may have 4 main partners in some ways to look at for veg.
Sure. Yeah. And what about you, Sean, at Spruce Peak? What are do you have some main partners that you primarily work with, or what does that look like?
Yeah, of course. We actually have a husband and wife team who used to be servers and bartenders here, who went on to start Triple J Pastures up in Irisburg, I believe. So we do a lot of protein with them, lamb, pork, chicken, eggs, things like that. We also work a lot with Knee Deep Farm in Jeffersonville, and then Naked Acre Farm in Hyde Park. We also do have a tremendous partnership collection through Jasper Hill Farm. They do a couple private label cheeses for us, as well as Caledonia Spirits, Bar Hill. We work a lot with them with a bunch of things. and run amok maple syrup does a maple syrup for us.
Fantastic. How have you gone about, I know Hervé, you mentioned like you met Grateful Greens at the forum dinner and that you connected with, I think you said Thousand Stone Farm on Instagram.
Yeah.
Are there other ways that you've found that you've kind of established those partnerships? Like, have you ever, for example, if you're looking for a particular ingredient, gone out and sought a farm for that ingredient, or do you, are you open to when people reach out to you to sell their product? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we open when people are reaching out. I'm totally open when they're reaching out to me, and then it's just difficult for me running a small place to go left, right, and center to go and check every farm and so forth. And that's also part of the logistic of this relationship. I think, for me, it is sometimes difficult to place 5-6 calls during the day or send text to place orders. And so that's kind of the thing. But most of them, we met some of the people like Rip and So. We met them about 3-4 years ago now, and they came and seeked us out. We had also at some point the mushroom company also we worked with them, and it's kind of the way side. The menu changes all the time. Every 2 weeks I change the menu, so it's kind of difficult to keep some kind of constant product on the menu. So that I'm looking what they have, they send me a list, and then if they have what I want, and I try to use during the summertime or during this producing season for vegetables, we're trying to definitely use what they have. So from the tomatoes to the beans to everything else. It's not always easy to find the products that I want because of calibration and all. But most of the time we try to use in summertime. I think probably 90% of our vegetables come from local farms.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and from my experience, actually the most productive and fruitful partnerships we've developed have been through essentially cold calls with the farmers coming in and kind of selling their goods unannounced. Knee Deep Farm, she just came in one day 5 years ago, and the rest is history with our relationship. So I would definitely never discourage anyone from maybe going out of their comfort zone a little bit and putting themselves out there to get those partnerships started. I would also echo that, if I see a really cool, melon or, something interesting tagged in someone's post, in the area, I'll look it up and see where they're at and then reach out to them and see if they deal with our location.
Yeah, that's great and good, like encouraging to hear, I think, for people sometimes that that maybe as a chef that you're open to people kind of cold calling, introducing, because that can be really intimidating for someone to maybe outreach, and I know that people are open to that. So you touched on this a little bit, Hervé, but I'd like to talk about sort of the menu planning process and some of the logistics of sourcing local. So obviously Vermont is has a very short growing season when it comes to produce and vegetables. We can talk about like what seasonality looks like and how often you change your menus to reflect that, how you kind of build them around what's available. Do you have anything you want to address or any thoughts with that?
So the way I change my menu, and I say that to everybody in some ways, I mostly look outside and see what, in the spring, I want something green. I want something, so I'm going to look at greens, I'm going to look at different herbs and so forth. And usually they can come pretty early, compared to the rest of the veg. But again, to me, it's going to be things that are kind of readily available at the time. And then afterwards, we're going to look at the quality and the calibration of the product. As I said, we use a lot of vegetables. 2 years ago with Rip and So Farm, we had these baby carrots. And I was going to table, yes, the protein was good, but people were actually mentioning the taste of the carrots. So, so if we have a good product, it's not about the price, it's not about the thing, it's about the product. And so we try, and what I try to do mostly is find a product that's going to be available at the time. So it's going to be seasonal, and again, like I said, in Vermont, it's like you said also, the season is short. So we start to see slowly vegetable trickling in by mid-July in some ways, right? Before it's a lot of starts and herbs and all. And afterwards we can really go into that part. But so it's kind of the thing I'm trying to do is look what's one available whenever I got list, and I look some of my, the regular purveyors we use, whether they use local, they buy from local farmers or not, but see what they have available, and then from there, if I can find them around, I'll do it. And so it is the change of the menu. I'm trying to address the seasonality quite a bit. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Do you do anything to extend the seasonality? Like, for example, do you do any like freezing, preserving, pickling, anything like that of those ingredients, or not so much?
Pickling, yes, I've done some pickling, and I got nailed a little bit. I mean, not there, but it was, the health department stopped by and told me, well, how old are those pickles? And I had some of them that were 9 months old, and so there is a bunch of rules that I would have to follow to the pickles. So I would have to send some sample, I think, in Cornell or at Cornell University to get the thing tested to see if it would be fine. And so, but when we did it, we had baby carrots, we had baby beets, we had baby all kind of the small veg, and so lots of pickling, of course. We've done also a bunch of tomato sauce. This one also, same stuff. I've done 40 or 50 jars of tomato sauce. Keep that in my fridge, and we use that either for staff or some of the base sauce we need in the restaurant. So again, we're trying to do some extension of the season in that way. It's not always permitted without having the stamp of approval from the health department, which is, I totally understand, and I'm not arguing with that. I think we have rules, we have to follow them. So this year, I did not do any pickles this year. So now when we do some, it's a short pickling. I think we have the 7-day extension, so the mushroom can be done in 7 days, that come out just fine, other product. But this one was really kind of but it was a bummer that we could not do a baby carrots. And so I think I finished the last jar that we had, that we've done 6-8 months ago, or that we've done a year ago. I finished the last jar at home last week. And it was still good. It was delicious. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Sean, what about you? What does seasonality look like in menu planning for across your multiple restaurants and on that, such a broad scale?
Yeah, so our menu planning kind of goes the opposite way, where we change the menus about 4 to 5 times a year, depending on which outlet we're in. Certain outlets lend themselves a little bit more towards changing the menus more often. However, we have certain concepts that we stay within the guardrails of, and we plan the menu knowing that menu needs to scale, and every item that's on that menu needs to be produced in bulk for thousands and thousands of people in any given menu period. So what we do is try to look at the seasonality, but then also look at products that, through 6 years of experience being in the area, I know that I can get from different farms. Instead of relying on, say, one farm to produce this one vegetable, I know that there are going to be lots of farms who are doing squash. There are going to be lots of farms who are doing, greens and tomatoes. So that's kind of where we are able to use the majority of our local spend, is on those things that multiple different farms are able to provide us, because just with the scale that we have to operate at, it's not feasible for one farmer to supply one ingredient for really any of our menu items. Now, on the other hand, when we do have people who are doing some really great, awesome, cool stuff, but they don't have a ton of it, that's where we work in our specials and our features, and let the chefs have a little bit more fun with them that way. So we're always looking for weird, cool, interesting things. They might not make it on our regular menu, but it's definitely something that does get used quite often. And we have certain menus, like in certain outlets, that just never change year over year. So.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Have either of you ever worked with a producer partner to request a specific ingredient? Like, I really want this specific herb for this dish, or certain variety of tomato for something, or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, I'm trying to use what they have. The other stuff, we talked with in the past with some farmers who were asking me what they wanted me to use, and if they could grow it and so forth. And we tried to go that way a little bit, but it's since we we have sometimes the restaurant business is very inconsistent in terms of number of people we serve. So it's difficult for me to kind of lock myself into, standing orders, or, trying to say, okay, I have that 40 pounds of that this week. I ask you to do it, but I just need 10 pounds. So it's always the difficult part for a small restaurant. I think for Sean, it's probably different. He's got a bigger place, and multiple outlets and a lot of place he can use all this veg. For a small restaurant, I think it's harder, especially we had sometimes. So we went with Rezi. It's a little bit of subject this past early June after 8 years or so that I was resisting, and then all of a sudden we saw a business super, pumping way more than it used to be, and so now I would say it would be a different story. But I think in the past, when we had a lot of inconsistent service, you could do 10 one day and for no reason the next day you do 50, and we still have this kind of rhythm once in a while. More so during this season, stick season, and during the mud season, and during the winter, we can be super busy at one time, but super slow at others. So we have to be flexible. I cannot spend a huge amount, and I need to be able to spend more every day. But I think and that's where it's kind of the flexibility for me. Sometimes it's lacking. I got to be flexible, but sometimes I feel like I cannot be flexible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I had Need Eat Farm do Badger Flame Beets and Honey Nut Squash because obviously they were all over Instagram, and I needed to have them locally. So she's been really good in terms of working with us at the beginning of the season to kind of gauge what our usage will be. And yeah, we have so much data on our business levels that I could probably tell you how many covers we're going to do on February 27th this next year. So it's a little bit more consistent on our end.
Right, you have more from like a planning standpoint to kind of work with, and consistency, I guess. Yeah, Sean, I have another question for you related to specialty food and beverage. I know you mentioned that you've done some like private label cheeses and partnerships with some of those beverage companies. I think you've also in the past done like a partnership with Blake Hill Preserves to do a special jam. Am I remembering that correctly? So if you could kind of talk about how some of those like partnerships have come about, and perhaps how other specialty food and beverage producers might be able to establish similar relationships like that with restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, at least on our end, we have
Mm-hmm.
a lot of retail outlets. So the whole impetus was that we're aiming to create kind of a Spruce Peak retail brand. And what I did, I was kind of tasked with getting that off the ground. And I looked around and I saw that, I asked Jasper Hill, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And they said, absolutely. Now we have to commit to buying a ton of it, but again, we have that ability. And then what goes well with cheese, it's going to be jam. So we're already working with Blake Hill. Blake Hill already works with Whistle Pig. We work with Whistle Pig. It was a no-brainer there. And then moving into like, what's the next logical thing? It's maple syrup. It would be, everyone comes to Vermont for maple syrup. So you have your cheese, your jam, your maple syrup. There's your Spruce Peak gift basket, and that's something that we use for amenities and VIP rooms and things like that. And then it just brings not only more awareness to us, because we have such a international clientele that come from all over the world to stay here in Stowe, but it also allows us to amplify the brands that we are partnering with. It's been really, really successful.
Yeah, that's great. Did those come about like with you reaching, or your team, whatever, reaching out to like Run Amok and Jasper Hill to try to build those products? Did they come to you with the idea, or how did that like how did that come about?
Pretty much it's something that it's been my little project that I've been working on. And it's just kind of evolved naturally and to include these partners in these items.
I see. Great. Let's go back to like local ingredients for a minute. So how do you educate your team, like your front of house team, to kind of communicate that story of the local food, local ingredients, local partnerships with local farms, to communicate that to your guests?
Well, I mean, we tell them where the product is coming from. We communicate to our customers. And but I don't have a list. A lot of restaurants have list of the farmers they use. I don't have that. I'm looking for a good product. And most of the time, like I said, in summertime when it comes to veg, we cannot beat Vermont. The shelf life is great. The freshness of the product is awesome, and the flavors are great. And so we communicate on this one. The staff usually is going to be very receptive to it, and really definitely pass it on to our customers when any question. And also I go and see the customers during dinner and have a chat with everybody almost, and then we always talk where the things are coming from, the partnership we have when we have the veg on the vegetable or the product on the table on the plate. Then we also tell them this is what you're eating now. It's coming from super close, and that's super good. But yeah, that's pretty much the way we do it. And so the staff they all going either to school here or live here, but most of them live here now anyways. And so they're also very interested into that. Amy Leclerc, for example, a wine sommelier, has some relationship with some winemaker here. I only have French wine. It's a disclaimer on my wine list. It's a French restaurant. But I know that she works with some local winemaker, and and she promotes the wine too. I mean, I don't do that at the restaurant, but she promotes it on the side too. So it's kind of a whole team thing, but it's also promoting Vermont not only in the restaurant but also outside of the restaurant.
Yeah. What about you, Sean? On your
Yeah, and everything we put on the menu, our motto is kind of service with a story. So everything that we put on the menu has some sort of story behind it that we work into the training material for our front of the house staff, whether it be the story behind why the dish is on the menu, or the story behind where the dish is coming from. And whenever we're using those local purveyors and producers, that is the highlight, and that is the story that people are telling at the table when they're deciding what to order.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What can we talk a little bit about, once you've established these relationships with your farm and producer partners, what are some things that go into maintaining those partnerships and keeping them really positive and productive for everybody? This can be advice for like other restaurants and chefs, or advice for other farmers and things that they can do to help kind of keep those relationships. But if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I would say that if it went for the relationship to last, and again for me, I'm a small fish in terms of size. It's for me the main thing I'm looking for is flexibility. I want to know that and the standing orders I will have some, but not very many. We have some with grateful greens. It's every 2 weeks they come and we'll use the living microgreens. So we got about 2 full trays, and that usually lasts me 2 weeks. Sometimes whenever we've been busy in October, it would last a week and a half, and then we would try to get some other thing. But they cannot always respond to the need we have when we're super busy, except for us to kind of order way more, and then losing half of the product, which is not kind of the goal. So we try to the flexibility is there, but we always have also all the communities, such as the BRP and the Seed Runner of this world. If we really need some kind of a patch, then we can fight that with them. And if it's locally grown, that's great. If not, well, that's we have to keep on the product going. But again, to me, the main thing when to keep the relationship going is one, having kind of an open relationship with the farmers, and like Whip and Sow was super good for that. We always were upfront. I told him what I wanted, what I needed. He got me to sing. He went also to his field of potatoes to get me all these marble potatoes at the end of the season. And then I bought the 40-pound he had, and then we used them all. But it's a little bit more demanding on this side for work. It's also on our part, but afterwards we got to work with the product. But it's such a good product that it's well worth it. I think for him, financially speaking, it was also good anyway. So.
Yeah.
I think for me, communication is just super important. Getting consistent product lists. Reaching out to proactively take an order. If we're only ordering 1 or 2 things from a given producer or purveyor, that's apt to slip, the minds of, some of my sous chefs who may be ordering. So I really just I advocate for people proactively going out there and getting the order on a weekly or biweekly basis, however they do it. And that's been important for us.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. What advice do you have for, maybe it's a new restaurant or chefs who want to expand their local purchasing? What advice would you have for a chef who wants to maybe work or improve their relationships with producer partners?
Well, I see it would be to join Vermont Fresh Network to get there is a good network there to use in terms of farmers, and it's a good resource center. And I use some of the farmers I found through Vermont Fresh Network. I think that's the first thing. Also, afterwards is to create, yes, as Sean was saying, a relationship and maintain it. And it's through, like you said, communication and ordering and trying. I don't use a lot of farmers, but when I use farmers, I try to get as much as I can from them. So they come for something and not for only 2 bunch of carrots. No, again, if we have the outlet for the product, if the product is good and of quality, then there will be no issue in buying the product.
Yeah, and I would say if you're just starting out, like look at some of your aspirational restaurants in the area and who are they using. That's going to be a great indication of what's available in your area and who's doing really good product.
Yeah, that's great and really helpful. And I wasn't trying to set you up to promote VFN, but I appreciate that you did. It's always great to hear that that is actually helpful for our chefs and everything. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Let's see how Hervé, I have a question for you. So with VFN and our membership and our renewal processes, we track basically the percentage that our chef members spend on local food each year. And Hervé, yours has increased, I think, from 15% in 2018 to like 47% or something in 2023. So you've significantly increased your local purchasing. What are some, I guess, how have you gone about that? Like, what are some techniques or tactics that have helped you really grow your local purchasing? And also maybe on the flip side, what are some challenges that have maybe kept that from going further? Or I just would be interested to hear you speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that for 2022, the summer 2022, we were super busy, and 2021 the same. We were very busy. We did so. I could buy a lot of different produce. So we started at some point. I had Rip and Sow. We had Grapefruit Green. We started with them this year, but then Thousand Stone Farm came on board, and we did very well with them. But the way we expanded it, at the time we had some cheese. We probably also at the time I tried to use some of the local meat too. But I don't do a lot of local meats. A question of some of it is a price point, but and also the supply, consistency of the supply. But most of the thing for us to increase at the time, we served a lot of booze. So yeah, Caledonia was involved into that part because we had when people come from out of state, we carry a lot of the different liquor from area. So we do cocktail with them. And again, depend on the year, but I think this year we'll see a big drop in our usage of the farmers. Hopefully it's going to be going up again next year. But I think this year probably we're going to go lower. The way we increased it was there were a lot of offering out there, and then we also, like I said, we had good product, and we bought tons, I think, last year in the last 2 years from Rip and Sow Farm and also from Thousand Stone Farm. So that was the 2 main farmers we used, and then they would come once a week. Plus with Thousand Stone Farm, and last year mostly in the last 2 years, I had to go also on Saturdays to get some more. When I was running out of produce, to go to the market and pick up some, which I don't think was super good for them. I don't think they liked it, but it was helpful for me to know that I had someone that could go to the market.
Yeah, sometimes, like you said, having that flexibility sometimes can be really helpful. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I do want to say, if anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. And we did actually have one question come in. What is the percentage of organic and heirloom seeds in the menu planning process? I'm
Well,
not sure
if we can,
let's see.
I
Yeah.
think,
Mhm.
the tomatoes, we're going to use heirloom tomatoes. If we can find, some small heirloom carrots and some of that stuff, we'll get some of those. Absolutely. If they, again, like for me, if they meet the spec I want, if they, then I'll go for it.
Yeah, I think mainly tomatoes, mainly winter squash, things like that. It's really tough again from our standpoint to plan a whole menu around something that may not be available in the quantities that we needed. But it's certainly something that we're into purchasing and using in other ways.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense for both of you. What you're saying with like the scale up your restaurants and everything is like Hervé, you change your menu twice a week and you have a much smaller operation that you're working with. So it makes sense that you could use maybe more heirloom or, special tea varieties. Whereas Sean, if you're, just sourcing a bunch of tomatoes and squash from as many farms as you can get it from to reach that volume. So I guess it just is a matter of kind of understanding for producer, understanding the restaurant and their needs and what you can provide. Let's see. Going back to my question list here. Oh, how, if you do, how do you connect your team and the people at your restaurant with your farm and producer partners? Do you ever go and visit farms, or do you bring farmers maybe in for a dinner to your restaurant, or do you have any kind of ways that you bring those relationships into your restaurants?
So we don't, for the staff. So I tell them where they can find the product, right? And if they want to come with me on Saturday morning to market, when I go and see this year mostly Ripenso, to find some of the produce that they had, they can come with me. We can go and see it. The farmers also, when they do the delivery, we have the time to chat with them, and then. But other than that, no. So far, I didn't do any tour of any farm except Ripenso, where I went last year whenever they had a new farm. But yeah, it's a question of time for me. I just don't have time to do it.
Yeah, here at Spruce Peak, we've been doing for the last few years called our Farm Table Dinner Series in the summer. So we'll do 5 dinners throughout the summer outside on our village green, and we pair one local beverage producer with one local food producer. So be it Bar Hill with Triple J Pastures, or sometimes it's, Iapetus with Jasper Hill Farm, things like that. And that gives the opportunity for us to thank the vendors and the suppliers and the growers and the farmers by inviting them to have dinner on things with exclusive products that they're supplying to us. And it gives our staff an opportunity to interact, as well as our guests to interact with these unsung heroes of the food chain.
Yeah, that's great. I have another audience question here. What challenges have you encountered with distribution of farm products or receiving farm products at your restaurant?
The challenge, there is, if we, sometimes we don't always get what we want, the quality of what we want, but it is what it is, most of the time. I think farmers also keep some for the share also, for the CSA program. But I think overall, I didn't have any time when I did not get what I wanted and what I ordered. So most of the delivery were very accurate, and again, like I said, fresh and good. So I don't think I had much challenge on that side.
That's
yeah,
great.
and I don't want to sound too high maintenance, but I don't like super dirty produce that arrives. It just takes a very long time to prep on our end, and certain farmers are better at it than others. And I like really nice, beautiful stuff arriving at the dock.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you find, from a logistical standpoint, I guess when you're working with farms, for example, a farm that maybe only delivers to your area once a week or once even every couple of weeks, do you find that it's challenging to work with their ordering system and really have to plan ahead? Or what does that kind of look like from a more organizational and logistical standpoint for you?
So I think for me that's where the challenge is in some ways. I think for Sean probably will be different. Again, it's got more outlets. I got one place. But to me, if they come once a week, I think I like to have the rhythm of twice a week. At least we can adjust what we need. Once a week, it's difficult. We had that last year with Southern Stone Farm. So they would deliver on Thursday. I would place my order Mondays most of the time. That's when I would get the email. And then, but sometimes we would get that on Thursday. We would already had finished what we had from the week before, really kind of, go and dig in hard on the Thursday and Friday night. And then Saturday, I had to go and get some more at the market. So, and I don't, again, I don't want to order too much. I don't want to waste any product. And so that's kind of the challenge we have, I think, for me, mostly anyways.
And our end, even though we are a large place, we don't have a ton of storage. So, if we're buying things in large quantities once a week, it makes it more difficult for us to find a place to put them. So I definitely love the twice a week deliveries if possible, but totally understand the limitations of some of these smaller operations.
Yeah, makes sense. It can be hard to kind of strike that balance. Have either of you worked with maybe some like local distributors like Black River Produce or, things like that, for example, to help kind of maybe with that consistency and that side of things?
Yes, I work with Black River Produce quite a bit. And then again, for them, it seems like they either had the product or didn't have the product sometimes. So it was kind of the supply on this side might have been sometimes difficult. So, but it's for me, I'd rather spend my, if I can block like 2 or 3, 3 farmers and Black River as a backup with seed rainer, if need be, that works better for me. But I think if some restaurant are probably calling 3 or 4 or 5 restaurants, 5 farmers a week, and I think for me that's a little bit difficult to do.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Chef. I find it to be a little bit more rewarding personally and professionally to work one-on-one with these farmers and producers, and it allows you to create those more personal partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That was actually kind of leading into what I was going to ask next. Was we've talked about some of the challenges, and on the flip side, what are some of the benefits that you found from really working and building these relationships with local partners, whether it's on the partnership and relationship side or on like the food and cuisine kind of side, or why do you think it's worth it to take the time and the energy and the effort to work with local producer partners?
Well, I think we have good product. I think we have good, very fresh product that where the shelf life going to be way longer than some of the commodity products. That's for me, that's the main advantage of it. Having again products that we know they're not coming from 600 miles away. So that's always better because you're going to get a product in the kitchen. So when you open the box, you look at the box, it's going to be firm, it's going to be fresh, it's going to be crisp, it's going to be all the things you need in a good product.
Yeah, and not only from a quality aspect, but just from an economic impact standpoint, being able to keep the money in the community, I think is really noteworthy cause, and I think it provides a great impact to the economy and the agricultural landscape.
Yeah, that's fantastic. For things that you can't source locally, like seafood, for example, you can't get seafood in Vermont really because we're obviously a landlocked state. What kind of values do you look for in your producer partners for those kinds of products?
Quality for seafood mostly.
Yeah.
Seafood. When I get a scallop, I want a dry pack U10, and they have to be dry pack U10. And we see when we cook them if they've been frozen or not before. For the fish, I usually buy whole fish. 90% of the time we buy whole fish. Then we look at the eye, the gills. It has to be nice and bright, and we get different. I use Vermont slopeside seafood, and they are in Warren, I believe, or one of this area, and so we get them. We get now about three deliveries a week with them. It's not huge delivery every time, but it allows us to keep the fish and to get a super fresh product. We also used seafood.com, so that's it's a fun colorway, but I can get some fish once in a while from Europe, and which is kind of fun to play with too.
Yeah, and we extend our partnerships all throughout New England. We've got oyster farmers in Maine and in Massachusetts. We've got seafood purveyors who are in Boston 4 or 5 times a week. Our meat comes either locally or regionally. So it may not necessarily be Vermont, but we are able to extend our partnerships throughout the region, and it's been really, really fruitful.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And to have those relationships with like individual companies and yeah, that's great. We did have another audience question. How much are food safety certifications a consideration or requirement when sourcing from local partners, like the USDA GAP certification, that sort of thing? Does any of that come into play as you're looking for local ingredients?
Not really. I don't think so.
No, I've never even heard of any of those, so maybe I
Fair
need
enough.
to be educated some more.
That sounds good. Yeah, we're coming up on the end of the questions that I have. I had a couple other random ones, but I think if there's anyone in the audience who has additional questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. I think Lisa, you said you had a question.
Yes. Well, first I want to say this has been such an interesting conversation. I really appreciate hearing what goes on behind the scenes and how the relationships are developed. And it's been primarily focused on sourcing, how you get your food. But Hervé has mentioned a few times the concerns about food waste. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the other end of the process. Are there partnerships and opportunities as well as challenges related to food waste and potentially productive use of some of that food waste?
So for us, the food waste is, so we have a compost bucket in the kitchen all day long. Servers clean up their plate. We have a compost bin in the back. Burlington, by law, we have to send that, and Casella's picking it up and send it to the compost center that they have. But we don't have a lot of waste. The goal is, this is where in this business, we make our money. The less we put in the trash, the more we keep in the bank. And so we, whatever went to the plate, out to the customer, comes back, got composted. If we have, carrot peels going to be composted, of course, but when we have onion peels, they're going to go into bill stock. So we try to reduce as much as we can. We also have a staff dinner every day. So when we have either some fish or some little hand of pieces of vegetable and so forth, we'll do something for the staff. Everybody eats every day. We open 5 days, so we have about in between 5 and 8 employees who are going to have dinner with us every day. So it's kind of but the waste is it's something in this business that I find unacceptable. If it's appealing, it's okay, but that's about it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Sean, I know you've got a different situation with the huge quantities that you're producing for.
Yeah, I mean, we also feed all of our staff daily, but it's 520 people a day. So we are able to maybe use some things that we ordered a little bit too much of in that aspect. And then we have the multiple different outlets that we try to cross utilize product in. If it's not moving in this outlet, then we'll move it over to this outlet and get rid of it there. But as Chef said, waste is painful for chefs, and anytime you see something that could have been sold going into the garbage, it's you die a little bit inside.
Yeah, I know there are some regulations around this. I didn't know if there were potential partnerships with food shelves or food banks, or is that too prohibited?
Well, I mean, I think I could maybe answer. When I was at the Hilton previously, before I opened my own, so that's now 8 years ago. We had banquet, and whenever you got a buffet, it's generating a lot of waste. And so we had the food shelf came in, and they asked us if we would do something, but the logistic of it for us to put things away, refrigerate it the right way, packaging it and for them to come and pick it up was too much. And at that time, I didn't have enough employees to do it. So we had some compost that sometimes were just a little bit too much, way too much. But I think it's also coming from, whenever you do big banquet and a lot of buffets, it's a tough one to deal with.
Yeah, and we've been trying to move away from more buffets to plated and small plate kind of displays, and that's kind of where the industry is heading in terms of that type of waste. But yeah, unfortunately, once food has been out, it's a liability on the company's part if anything happens to it after that. So
yes, definitely a challenge people are working on. We have just a couple minutes left. So any closing remarks before I officially close us up here?
Well, thank you for having us. I think it was an interesting conversation for sure. I think the Vermont Fresh Networks helps a lot. Like again, it's for me, I got to meet a lot of different farmers in the Vermont Fresh Network Forum and all. So it's always interesting to do so. I think it's always difficult to run a restaurant and the purveyors because we work with perishables, and therefore perishable we need to use them as fast as we can. But again, we don't always have the business, so afterwards we have to kind of all be a little bit more flexible. And then I think flexibility is a key word for me. And if we can all get there, then we will be in good shape.
And I'm excited about Trencher's Farmhouse Pasta, which I met at your Vermont Fresh Network networking event.
The networking event that we had in Burlington.
Yeah. So we've already got them locked in for 40 pounds of pasta a week now. And then I love some of the NA beverages that are coming out of Vermont right now, from Bitter Bubble to the NA beers and craft sodas. I think that's been exciting. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about it and let you guys into a little bit about what we do.
Yeah, thank you both so much for coming on with us today and sharing your experiences and insights and everything.